So, hello and welcome back everyone. I've got a new video for you today, and today we're going to be extending, or at least carrying on from what we started a little earlier on in the week, or towards the end of last week, and that is building on positioning items in the world. Now, in actual fact, I didn't see this as a beginning to a Battle Royale kind of style tutorial, but actually some of the skills that we would learn if we went in that direction would be beneficial. So what I've decided to do is start to look at that sort of mode and build this into a mini Battle Royale tutorial, if you like. So if you work through all the videos in this sequence, and this is the second one of the sequence, you will have all of the tools and guides that you need to build your own mini Battle Royale if that's what you want to do, or you'll have learned a few skills along the way that you can use in your own game modes, however you wish to use them. Once I've finished all these little mini tutorials, I'll look at possibly putting them all together into one big package so that if you follow it, you can build your own Battle Royale mode for yourself. I do have a few other projects on the way. I did mention a little while ago that I had a new game mode that I've called Bounty Hunter, that covers some basic skills and will make an interesting new mode. I do have that coming along shortly. Just before we get into this tutorial, could I please say thank you to everybody that's subscribed so far and all of the positive comments. I am really grateful for those. I'm driving very quickly towards 500. It's strange because I thought I'll have a target of 200 subscribers before Christmas. Now it looks like I might manage to hit 500. If I can hit 500, that would be brilliant, because I'm really looking forward to being able to post community posts and talk to you about the events in Portal in a little bit of an easier way than having to deliver anything that I want to say through my videos. Anyway, today we will be looking at positioning players in the world, and we're going to use the teleport function to do that. It is going to be quite a quick tutorial, and we're going to do it in a little bit of a quirky way because we are going to mimic a parachute drop that you would find in a Battle Royale. So, without further ado, let's crack on with the tutorial. So hi, and here we are again back in the Portal rules editor, and we are going to extend the tutorial that we started last time, that introduction to the Battle Royale mode, positioning items, and in that video we got to the X, Y and Z coordinates of different positions on the map, or at least we showed you how to get those positions by using a little bit of code. And if you have not watched that video, it is pretty important that you watch that video, because you will need at the very least the X and Z coordinates in order to position things on the map. The Y coordinate in this video we're not going to use because we are actually going to drop everybody from the sky. We're going to set them very high in the sky and they're going to parachute drop in. However, if you want to get the coordinates of something on the ground, or you want to place a soldier on the ground, you will in addition need the Z coordinates, so you get them in the exact place on the map where you want them to be, and hopefully that will become clear as we go along. So once again, if you've not watched that introduction tutorial, that part 1 tutorial, just click on the card in the top right hand corner, watch that and then come back. So now I'm assuming that you've watched that video and you know how to get the X, Y and Z coordinates that you need. So in this tutorial we will be using the free-for-all mode, because that makes sense if we're just kind of dealing with a Battle Royale style thing, and we will be using the renewal map. You can see I've got the renewal map. We've used this because it's one of the larger maps. If you use a different map, it's important to note that the X and Z positions will be different for different maps. Clearly they are all different sizes, they all have different locations and different layouts, so it's very important that you traverse the map that you're looking at and figure out what the X and Z coordinates are. Now what I actually did was I went across the entire map and I plotted a rectangle, so I figured out what the top left, top right and bottom right coordinates were that I needed, so the limits that I wanted these soldiers to drop into. And then I used those as, or I will use those later on as the limits for where they are going to drop in the sky, but I think that will become clear as we work our way through it. Right, the code's very short, so we're just going to dive straight in. So as far as the standard game mode settings go, we're not going to mess around with those too much. In this, as I say, I've set the game mode as free for all and added renewal as the map rotation. That's the only map, and I've also just set one player just so that I can give you an example clearly in your game mode. You can just add human players if you want and drop them in wherever you like. I've not altered any of the modifiers, only to make sure that I have some AI players in there. By the way, there is something funny going on with the AI count at the moment and saving the experience, and if I just crank that up a little bit and press the save button, you'll see that it doesn't save. This experience save was not successful. However, I would just crank it down a little bit. We'll go with 30. That actually saves. So there is something a bit strange going on with the AI count at the moment, but I wouldn't worry too much about those. I've also set the AI type to player versus environment, but again, you can set that however you want. Right, let's have a look at the rules editor and get straight into the logic that we are doing. Right, so basically we are going to position a player as they deploy. The position that that player is going to be placed in is going to be very high up in the sky, and it is going to be in a position of my choosing on the map. So to start it off with, we're going to drop everybody in the exact same location. So I showed a little clip at the beginning of this video, and I've just got it rolling again in the background, just showing you what happens or what you should expect to happen when we do this. And for this particular first part, I'm just going to set the location to drop in the X and Z coordinates as being 0 and 0. In actual fact, those values can go quite high up into the positive value, so positive 500, negative 500, but for now we're going to drop them all at position 0, 0. I know where that is in the map because I have plotted that out already. In addition, we're going to drop them, or at least we're going to position them at the Z position of plus 1000. I actually took one of the little bird choppers up in the air just to see how high that would go, and it just tops out at about 1000. Y position, so that's what we're going to do, and you can see that that is a very, very high location in the sky. So the rule is very simple. We're going to get our rule, I'm going to drop it in there, and we're going to call this parachute drop. Okay, and this event is going to happen on player deployed. So each time a player dies, they are going to deploy at the location that we set for them. And then finally, we are going to use the teleport function, or the teleport command. And the teleport command can be found under player. And we can use this to move any player from wherever they are to wherever we want them to be. And if we just have a look at that command, you can see that it needs a player. That's who it's going to move. Teleports the target to a provided valid position, a vector. And in the previous video, when we spoke about finding our position in the world, we also spoke about vectors. You can see we need to create one of those. That's a X, Y, and Z position. And we also need another number, which is the yaw rotation. So if you imagine that that's the degrees where a person is pointing, that can be anywhere between 0 and 360. So that's what we need in order to teleport the player. And in this case, we are simply going to get the player. So event payloads, event player. We want to teleport the player that has just deployed. Then we need a vector, and we find them under maths, if we remember from last time, so create vector. And this needs 3 components. We can see that it's 3 numbers, and if we have a look, those numbers represent the X, Y, and Z position. And again, from the initial introduction video, you'll know we can think of X as sort of being left and right, Z as being forwards and backwards through the 3-dimensional world, and Y as being height, so up and down. So we are going to get some literals, and as I said, for this first particular section, we are just going to drop them in at 0x. Duplicate that, 0z, and we are finally going to drop them very high in the sky by setting the Y position at 1000, and there we go. Okay, so now when a player is deployed, that player will be teleported to this position in the map. We just have this final box to put in there. That's the degrees, the yaw, if you remember, that we want them facing. We'll just set that to 0 for now, but we'll have a play around with that in a minute. And that's it. Very easy. Okay, so this will create a very interesting parachute drop effect for players when they fall in, and as soon as they deploy, they are all going to parachute in at the same location on the map, 1000 high. And you could use that in your experiences now if you want to. In fact, I'm just going to save that and we'll call that, there we go, parachute drop, teleport code to force player position in the air. Okay, save it, there we go, and that experience has been saved, we're good to go. So now it's time to make things a little bit more interesting. We're just going to play around with some random numbers and we're just going to show you how you can distribute these players across the map. So we're going to get rid of that vector, that one, and the yaw, and we're going to kind of mimic a random parachute drop across the map. Now, if you look at the diagram that I'm showing you here, you'll see that this shows you an overview of the map as you see in the game, and you can see that I've overlaid a square over the top of it. Now there's a lot of different ways of doing this. This is the way that I've done it because it's quite simple for everybody to understand. But all that I've done is I've drawn a square over the map and we then drove to each corner location of that square, or you can take a helicopter if you want to, and we recorded the X and the Z coordinates for those particular locations. Once we've got the X and Z locations at those particular locations, we can then work out what the highest X position and the lowest X position is, and the highest Z position and the lowest Z position is, and then we can generate a random number that falls between those values for each player that's dropped in, effectively creating a random parachute drop across the entire map for all players when they fall in. Now it's not really the same as a Battle Royale, because in Battle Royale you can choose where you're going to jump out of the aeroplane, but unfortunately, as we have no control of forcing people to spawn into vehicles, at the minute this is what we've got. It is worth noting, by the way, that if you've got players that do like to shoot people or attempt to shoot people out of the sky, if you're doing a true Battle Royale, don't forget, and we will build on this, you will probably want everybody starting with a pistol, but we'll get there later on. So how do we do this random parachute drop? Okay, so we need random numbers, and we get those from maths. We look down a little bit, we can find a random real. I've gone a little bit past it, there we go. And the random block just basically produces a random number between this number that we put there and that number that we put there. Now, from the square that I drew, I know that the lowest X position on the map for my particular rectangle that I drew was minus 383, and the highest X position was plus 595. Now that will keep them well within the confines of the map, but will still allow for a random dispersal of players. So we're just going to put those values into this random real command. We need a literal. So what do we say? We want a random number from between minus 383 and, let's duplicate that, plus, do we say 595? Yeah, that's right. Okay. So that gets us the X coordinates. We want to create a vector with an X position that is randomly between minus 383 and plus 595. We want a Y position of 1000 because we still want them to go up in the air, and we want to ensure that we have a random value or a random set of values for our Z position. We just need to get the extreme values for the Z position. I obviously already know what those dimensions are, and that was, the lowest is minus 693, which is quite a low number, and the highest value for the Z position was 195. Now I have to say, these values, they're not an exact science for me, they were just where I kind of roughly plotted them on the map. In fairness, we're going to drop people at random all across the map using these locations, and they're going to end up wherever they want. The only thing that we want to do is make sure that they are dropping within a valid area so that they don't die as soon as they spawn in. The last thing to do is to set the yaw, and this time let's create a random value for that as well so they don't know which direction they're going to be pointing in when they spawn in. And we did say that that could be between 0 and 360 degrees. Make it 359, doesn't really matter. So we're going to get a number between 0 and 359, and that will dictate the direction that they're pointing in. And once again, that is it. We have our dropping system, we have our parachute system. It's quite a long section of code. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, but that's it. When the player is deployed, we will teleport that player to this vector, which will be a random X position between those values, 1000 up in the sky, and a random Z position between this value and that value, and then we will randomly rotate them so they're pointing in a different direction, and that value will be anywhere between 0 and 359 degrees. And that's it. That's your code. I told you it was going to be a very short video today. We're just slowly building up the Battle Royale. I hope that's okay for you. If you've got anything useful from that, if you find a way to use that in your mode, that's fantastic. Now that we understand how to teleport things and find positions in the real world, we can build on this. We can place AI players on the ground if you know the exact Y position for that particular location. You can drop your own AI players in. You can do whatever you want with that. Like I say, only a short one today, but it is a very, very useful block of code, and it does help us build towards that complete Battle Royale or other mode. Let's wait and see. If you found this useful, as always, please do click the subscribe button. Please click the like button and share with others. Many thanks for watching, everybody, and until next time, see you later.